Ladies and gents, this is ML's Like Teen Spirit. Today I've got Umar back with me. Umar, welcome back.
Thank you, John. Nice to be back on MLTS Spirit again.
Yeah, you're welcome. Umar, you're here because you've got this interesting background. On the last interview, you talked to us about data journalism and what it was, and so on and so forth. I've recently got to know you more, and I know you're super passionate on things like motorsports and this sort of thing. And when we planned these calls, you said we could do a discussion on sports broadcasting and some of the lessons contained in this about how to engage audiences with information and so on and so forth. So I'd love to get into just get into it straight away. Like, what is it that made you say this? So what makes sports broadcasting distinct from any other broadcasting or data journalism?
It's live event driven, is sports broadcasting. So it focuses on a particular sport, whether it's boxing, motorsport, darts, snooker, rugby union, and so forth. So there's more opportunity to create narratives around the teams and the competitors competing in those sports, whereas regular broadcasting, it's very one-dimensional. It tends to focus on a beginning, a middle, and the end. Sports broadcasting has that, but it's more unpredictable. So when you watch a live event, let's say the Olympics or let's say the Women's Euros, which is going on right now in Switzerland, it not only just caters to the die-hard hardcore fans, but it also caters to the casual fans who may not be familiar with that sport, whether it's the Women's Euros or the upcoming British Grand Prix, which is coming up this weekend. So there's a lot more accessibility to get into that topic, much more at a lower advanced level compared to, let's say, the news, where you have to almost kind of be on top of it to know what's going on.
And how has this some of this unpredictability, how has this inspired you to bring this up as a topic? So your background is data viz and data storytelling. What is it that you like in sports broadcasting that you kind of bring from that to your analytics work?
It's the professionalism, it's the unpredictability that goes on. Whenever you see the anchor person on camera, you just think, oh, they're reading from an autocue. Some of them do read from an autocue, but some of them don't. So it's that ability to appear natural and confident in front of the camera, even when loads of things are going on at once. I think it's all about trying to deal with pressure in a way that when the viewers are watching you or the viewers are listening to you, they don't see that person who's anxious and wanting to move from one topic to another. Sport is very unpredictable anyway as a broadcasting sort of piece of content. So it's all about adapting to various situations and making sure that you capture the atmosphere and also the moment within that sort of concept. So there's a lot of things that are going on, and you kind of have to be prepared to know when to move on from one thing to another.
So this is really what we're really going into is probably like the presentation skills side. If we took it to the business context, you're saying there are sports broadcasters. They're very comfortable with something unpredictable happening, but they also have like exhaustive notes in front of them to help them do all this narrative. So this would be like if you were presenting business analytics, knowing what you're going to present and being prepared for it is all the note taking and all these things. The unpredictable part is you don't know when someone's going to ask a question. And I've been there, Umar. I suppose you can get an excited question. So people will be like, hey, Umar, that data point's really exciting. Is it true? So you're like, yeah, of course it's true. You're the boss when that happens. You also get the other way of like maybe a more critical question of like, are you sure that this is correct? Because I've got prior information or something like this. So there's the anticipation of those questions, I think, could be part of this unpredictable element. That means you have high performance in a business context, a bit like those sports broadcasters would. Let me pick on you, Umar. Who is the daddy or the mother of, in sports broadcasting? Who is just the very best at this performing just generally and then under unpredictable conditions?
There's no contest. It's got to be the great Jim Rosenthal. I met him over 6 years ago in London, and he's exactly what you see on television as you would see in person. Just a wonderful human being. You would think that whenever you see Jim present in his sort of, let's say, over half a century in sports broadcasting, you sort of think, oh, he's reading from an autocue whenever he's presenting Formula One, football, boxing, rugby, and so on. But he's just got that natural ability and is able to really get the most out of everything that he's given, particularly when he covered Formula One for since 97 to 2005. It was a sport that he had very little knowledge about and he picked it up really quickly. And there's a lot of things that we can sort of take into account from Jim as BI and data professionals, and that is have a presenting style that is memorable, but also is warm and invites people into the discussion or into the analysis that you're presenting. When you're on camera or on radio, it's very scary when you have millions of people who are listening or watching you present an event and they're expecting you to fail. So it's all about being able to cope with the pressure, which is what Jim has done so well for many decades across UK sports broadcasting and also internationally for Dubai.
So it sounds like what tips can we give people so that we can bring this into our analytical context? So there's like prior preparation is one key part of it. Is there anything that Jim's doing that you can think of, like you mentioned earlier, like the story arc, the narrative that you build? Like, are there any things that you think of that you would be like, this is what I would take from sports broadcasting into my career presenting analytics? What would be some of those things that Jim does, fantastically, that you would use in your analytical job?
Jim's very well prepared. When I interviewed him 6 years ago, well over 6 years ago, in fact, he saw my notes when I was preparing for this interview and he sort of liked that. So it's being able to be properly prepared, doing your research. Don't spend a couple of days researching something. Spend at least a week or two really getting to know the subject inside out. It means that when you go into that meeting, you know what you're going to present. Or if that's not being presented, at least you can improvise and think on your feet. So it's all about improv and being able to work within the constraints of the meeting that you're in and present it in the best possible way you can.
Let's go into the accessibility part. So at the start of this interview, you said how the sports broadcasters are great because they have sometimes the right depth for the passionate audiences, but are also able to engage with folk just watching that day because they've got nothing else to do. So they're able to strike some type of balance as to the depth they go to. Is there any way you could think of this, or like how do you do the bit where you engage people that are like only half interested? Like what is it these sports broadcasters are integrating to make it interesting for people that aren't so passionate?
For the last decade, what I think has been going on is a lot of the sort of the broadcasters are using social media and vertical video to make their sports accessible to a younger audience. However, what I sort of think Jim and also the older broadcasters like Steve Ryder, Gabby Logan, who I think is absolutely fantastic and she's still going, is that they had an ability to talk to the audience in a way that appealed to both the casuals and also the die-hard fans. I think at the moment, what I'm sort of seeing a lot from sports broadcasters nowadays is they're playing to the gallery. They're not talking to the casual audience as if they know the sport, because they're sort of assuming that they already know the sport. So it's all about being inclusive. Communicate. Don't just communicate to the gallery. Communicate to your grandma who's watching it for the first time. Communicate to your niece who's probably watching it for the first time. Don't make it about yourself. Make it about the event and make it inclusive for everybody who's watching the broadcast.
Good. These are good tips. I think you could say, like in the business context, then you'll have a meeting room full of people, and 25% of them will be like hugely data literate geeks, be very, very interested in what you're saying. But the majority will just be short on time, need to know the answer, and want it explained in the most simple way possible because maybe data's not intuitive for them. So it's making sure you probably strike a balance to address those two different types of people. So simple outputs, simple descriptions, and I suppose the business language is what you're saying. Speaking the language of the business, just so it's super understandable. My background is in things like machine learning. And this is an area that is full of lingo, acronyms, and technical concepts. And what people learn over time is the very worst thing you can do with this is present technical analysis in the meeting with the business stakeholders. They just need to know, we can make a prediction, and it makes this measure here better than before. That's literally the sum total of many months of work. But if it goes any more technical than that, it's not very engaging for the users. They turn off, ignore what you said, and the meeting's not that successful. Okay, good. Look, so I understand sports broadcasting and how they address different audiences and what we can take from it. Are there any final comments you have on any of us involved in telling stories with data? Anything we can take from sports broadcasting that we didn't discuss already?
You've got to make the data the star of the show. Don't make it about yourself. If you make it about yourself, the audiences and stakeholders are going to switch off within the first minute or two. They're just not going to buy into your analysis. Be inclusive with your communication and analysis. Don't exclude, include everybody. Make your report so easy, or let's say your dashboard so easy that a 5-year-old can understand it. And also take your users on a journey. You want your stakeholders to be part of that journey, so that they're holding on to every word you say, so that when they go to the end of the presentation, when they ask those questions and they go for a debrief, they exactly know that they've made the right decision in terms of the analysis that has been presented. And if they haven't made that decision, at least they will appreciate the time and effort you've spent into telling that story with a report or a dashboard.
Yeah, it's a good tip, Umar. I can think of times on my own experiences in business. Sometimes teams are, for time reasons, are like forced to include executive summaries that come before all the analytics that's being presented or something like this. So sometimes in dashboarding and whatnot, it's a bit like, can we put our key numbers at the top that are the North Star or our most important numbers here? And if you jump into those first, you sometimes lose all of that context as to like, how does this story build? So I've been in meetings where the executive summary is at the front and then everyone falls asleep while the actual analytics as to like why that is true or how much certainty we have is presented. Everyone's staring out the window. So there's sometimes folk need to be careful on how you use exec summaries, and it can be more valuable to try and bring people on a journey but shorten it if time is an issue. But unfortunately, I've seen it the other way around, where exec summaries dominate, but then the rest of the meeting is a bit empty because everyone knows what you're going to say anyway. So there's this kind of this to think about too. Umar, one more question before you go. When I said who is the very best at this in sports broadcasting, I'll be honest, I expected you to say Murray Walker. So what's up with this? Can I just get an opinion here? Why was he not selected?
I love Murray Walker. He's a Brummy legend. However, I grew up watching Jim Rosenthal on every sport you could think of, and he just was awesome to watch. He just had that distinctive voice, and that delivery just reminds me of watching Formula One when I was a kid on ITV. And I always will just remember him being in the studio with Tony Jardine and Mark Blundell. And those sort of visuals will never go out of my mind for as long as I can live, I'll tell you that.
Well, Umar, I think I'm showing my age by bringing up Murray Walker, so I'm a bit older than you. And yes, this is the guy I remember screaming out of the TV set on a Sunday. But okay, Umar, look, thanks for taking us through all that. It's an interesting subject area. Thanks for your insights. Ladies and gents, this has been ML's Like Teen Spirit.